Joining me in the kitchen today is Dr. T. Colin Campbell, a person who many people consider is the father of modern nutrition. Dr. Campbell is the author of the national bestseller, The China Study, which he co-wrote with his son, Dr. Tom Campbell, and the New York Times bestseller, Whole. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, I want to just start out reading a short paragraph from the book Whole. On page 7, what it says in this paragraph, I feel, is the only information people need. They almost don't need to read the book.
Don't say that.
Well, I don't mean, no, of course. I mean, they should read the book. But when I read this paragraph, it says, the ideal human diet looks like this. Consume plant-based foods in forms as close to their natural state as possible, in parentheses, whole foods. Eat a variety of vegetables, fruits, raw nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, and whole grains. Avoid heavily processed foods and animal products. Stay away from added salt, oil, and sugar. Aim to get 80% of your calories from carbohydrates, 10% from fat, and 10% from protein. I mean, what more do we need to know about human nutrition than that paragraph?
If everyone followed that, we'd be in good shape.
That's right. Well, based on what that paragraph said, I'd like to show you a really easy recipe using all those ingredients you mentioned, and none of the ingredients that you said we shouldn't eat, which, by the way, has been my diet for almost 40 years. And I'm 92 years old, so you can see it works great.
A little younger than me, but that's okay.
So your wife, Karen, told me she does have an electric pressure cooker. She hasn't used it yet, so when you see how easy it is to use the Instant Pot, hopefully you guys will start cooking with it as soon as possible. Hi, I'm Chef AJ, the host of Healthy Living. You know, as a professional chef, I have just about every kitchen appliance known to man. But my all-time favorite, the one that I absolutely could not live without, is the Instant Pot electric pressure cooker. One of the things that I particularly love about the Instant Pot electric pressure cooker is that it comes with a stainless steel insert. Many other electric pressure cookers come with nonstick inserts, so if you want to avoid the dangers associated with nonstick linings, the Instant Pot is the way to go. The Instant Pot not only saves me time, but it saves me money. Because instead of eating out at restaurants or eating processed food, I'm cooking whole foods like whole grains and legumes in no time. Things that take a really long time to cook on the stove, like beans that could take 2.5 hours, can take as little as 10 minutes in the Instant Pot electric pressure cooker. Steel-cut oats, for example, which take about an hour to cook on the stove, take only 5 minutes in the Instant Pot electric pressure cooker. And you can make delicious soups, stews, and chilies in less than 10 minutes. And many of these recipes are available free on my website, eatunprocessed.com. When I get home from work late, the last thing I want to do is cook. But with the Instant Pot, all I have to do is throw everything in, press a button, and walk away. I use that time to take a bubble bath, or take my dog for a walk. Who wants to slave over a hot stove? At the push of a button, you can have healthy, delicious meals in no time. I know what a lot of you are thinking. The last thing I need is another appliance to sit on my counter. But first of all, this is not just another appliance, because this will replace at least 4 appliances that you might already have. In addition to being the world's finest electric pressure cooker, it's also a slow cooker. That's one tool already you can get rid of. It's also a rice cooker, so you no longer need your rice cooker, and it even makes yogurt. You can even bake a cake in the Instant Pot. I always joke with my husband that if there was a fire, I would grab my dog Sparky under one arm and my Instant Pot on the other arm. That's how much I love my Instant Pot. You know, ever since my book Unprocessed came out 4 years ago, I've been on the road 50 weeks a year. And I can honestly tell you that I travel with my Instant Pot electric pressure cooker so that I can cook healthy things like potatoes and greens in my hotel room. Instant Pot has agreed to offer a discount to all the viewers of Healthy Living. Simply go to their website, www.instantpot.com, and put in the code MyNameAJ for $50 off your Instant Pot. I know that you will love it as much as I do. So we're going to make a split pea soup. I'm going to use yellow split peas because I just think they're pretty. I've got 8 cups of water in there. I'm going to add 2 pounds of organic sweet potatoes. I like to keep them kind of chunky because they cook down and they get kind of smushy. I keep the skin on because there's fiber and nutrition in the skin. 1 onion chopped. 1 pound of yellow split peas. This is the part that's going to make it really good, the spices. You know, people think that plant food is rabbit food, like you said, but it's not. It's delicious, but you need to know how to spice it.
It really does take it up to a new level.
Do you like garlic?
Yes, I do.
Me too. My feeling is if a little garlic's good, more is better. So as much as we can get in there. I personally don't use salt, but I have a delicious salt-free seasoning that I like that I put in. Some dried parsley, basil or basil, however you prefer to pronounce it, dried rosemary, oregano, celery seed. This is a really
That's
delicious
starting to look
spice.
like a haystack.
This is one of my favorite spices. Do you know what that is?
No, but it smells good.
It's smoked paprika, and believe it
Oh,
or not,
okay.
it's different when it's smoked. It's just has so much more depth of flavor when it's smoked. And I've been saying all these spices. I can't remember which one that was, if it was oregano or basil, and a bay leaf.
Oh, wow.
Some celery. And you know, since I don't eat salt, when I put celery in everything, celery is incredibly salty when you're not.
That's, yeah,
when
that's
you're
one
not-
thing I do know about the kitchen, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you're an academic. What can I tell you? So very easy. But even my husband knows how to use the Instant Pot, because all you do is you put the top on. I noticed you had a phone that was more complicated than my phone. This is easier to use than one of those phones.
Okay.
Push the manual button. Put the time on. We're going to let it go. It's about 8 minutes, but I'm going to make it go for 8 minutes. And we set it, forget it, and then we can have a nice chat. Now, believe it or not, guess where that recipe came from?
Yes, the China Study All-Star Cookbook.
That's right. This is a wonderful compilation, the China Study All-Star Collection. A lot of the well-known plant-based chefs contributed recipes. We're going to do 3 recipes that I contributed. You know, I noticed that the author is Leanne Campbell, PhD. Any relation?
Yes, she's our daughter.
Well, so you mean everybody eats like this in your family?
Yeah, actually, we all do. There's 18 of us
Wow.
now, and we're 100% thanks to my wife, actually, in
Wow.
large measure. She really keeps us sort of, honed in on what we should do.
How many children, how many grandchildren?
5 children, 8 grandchildren. Of course, there's some spouses and Karen and I.
And so the grandchildren were actually raised eating this
They
way?
were more or less.
Right.
I mean, when I first got into this, they were then by that time in their almost teens, if you will.
Wow.
But in any case, they all do it now.
That's fantastic. One of the things I loved, well, there's so many things I loved about the China Study, but one of the things that you mention over and over again is how genetics loads the gun, but it's our diet and lifestyle that pulls the trigger. A lot of people think that it's the luck of the draw. If they're overweight, if they have heart disease or diabetes or cancer, it's genetics. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we all have a so-called genetic template, essentially, a template that allows cells to do whatever they have to do in our bodies. And so all of us, too, also have some genes we might not particularly like. Mm-hmm. But really what's important about this whole question is not the genes we have or we don't have necessarily. It's really about how nutrition controls the expression of those genes. Pulls the trigger, if you will. So that's really what it's about.
So what you're saying is that if we change our nutrition to the superior nutrition of a whole food plant-based diet as opposed to the standard American diet, we can actually change the expression of our genes.
Absolutely. It's very impressive, this whole
That
property.
should be on the front page of every newspaper.
I wish it were. I've tried.
That's absolutely incredible. You may not remember, but before I knew you, I had emailed you. I'm sure you get millions of emails every day, but I had emailed you because this book has made such a profound difference in my life and in the health of so many people, because I can make this delicious food, but a lot of people want to know the why. I can show them the how, but this is the why. Irrefutable. This book was called the Grand Prix of all epidemiological studies by the New York Times. So I give this book over and over. Why aren't we, you and me are shouting it from the rooftops. We travel extensively, but why, it's almost like they want to suppress this information.
Well, that's actually in large measure the topic of this book here.
Right.
I really wanted to know for myself, given my 50 plus years in this business, I really wanted to know, is there some way we can try to figure that out? And we know the usual things. There's major industries that are concerned about basically what we're finding here, and I can understand that. But at the same time, I thought there ought to be a way to explain this in terms of how do we do science? How do we understand science? How do we articulate science? And I think something about that second book is in place. We don't really understand it. We don't use science quite the way that we should.
Was it a shock to you growing up on a dairy farm to find out that the life's blood of your work was now one of the most potent carcinogens you'd ever discovered?
The key word you just said is shocked.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. I was in the Philippines. We saw some things. I got some impressions that, were exactly the opposite of what I thought. And so we were doing basic research in the laboratory at the same time. And I wanted to know whether this observation of this crazy thing that I thought I was seeing was real. So we did a lot of research. We used public money, basically government money in that sense. And we just studied it, and finally, after 2 or 3 years, I said, this is it. When protein is fed in excess of the amount of protein we need, and we need protein, when it's fed in excess, especially if it's coming from animal sources, that's a problem. We found out we could turn on cancer. We decrease it, turn it off. It was very, very dramatic. And it took me a couple of years to really, in a sense, digest that.
No pun intended. Be sure to come back because Dr. Campbell is going to show you how to make an easy and delicious quinoa salad. In the meantime, watch this clip from Dr. Campbell's next movie, Plant Pure Nation, directed by his son, Nelson Campbell.
What's your healthiest meal?
What?
Do you have any health meals? Anything that's fresh?
No, we don't.
The culture in America is that everything revolves around food and unhealthy food.
The healthcare cost trajectory is out of control because the consumers are not in charge.
This is clearly an unsustainable trend.
We're not telling people how to use food.
Red meat,
Beef.
green beans with bacon and butter.
When we talk about this idea of plant-based nutrition, it's a powerful concept, and it's one that my father is associated with.
Dr. Colin Campbell, Doc. Whole foods, plant-based diet.
Right.
You don't mean the store.
No.
I went on essentially a plant-based diet. No dairy, no meat.
Type 2 diabetes, heart disease, hypertension. Gone.
Physicians don't know how to prescribe a diet. We've been taught how to write prescriptions.
Right now, this information isn't available to them. So how can they make a decision?
And working our way into the political process here.
The absence of meat as part of your diet is not the best direction for all Kentuckians.
You got to realize that there's a lot of big money interest.
But the amendment itself is flat out true.
We're trying to demonstrate this concept in this community.
We offered 10 days of food.
I've been testing for 26 years, and I've never seen results like this.
Mr. Speaker, I call for a vote.
The folks that are challenging this, they represent big business.
Well, the truth is a stubborn thing. It doesn't go away.
The documentary Plant Pure Nation explores scientific evidence.
In any movement, the first step is always the hardest.
Your total cholesterol is 150.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
When people learn about this, the very next question they ask, why haven't I heard this before? Why? Because revolutions can't start without awareness. Back when I started in this, there were 3 farmers markets. Now there's about 26.
The amount of money that we spend to create the kind of health situation we have, it's not working.
This is going to be a lifestyle.
Our thesis is that we've got to change this world from the bottom up.
Welcome back to Healthy Living. I'm in the kitchen with Dr. T. Colin Campbell, the author of the China Study, and he's going to show you how easy it is to make this delicious quinoa salad. So I can't ask you if you've ever cooked before because we know the answer, you have once. So this
On your show.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be your second time. You want to show them what you're wearing just so we can,
All clean and ready to go.
Right, latex free, just in case anybody would have that allergy. So we have quinoa here, which is a whole grain that's high in protein. Everybody worries about that. We're going to talk a minute about why we don't need to worry about that. But if you are, it happens to be one of the grains higher in protein. So we don't use any oil on this show. So our dressing is some fresh lime juice. We don't use salt, so we're going to add some lime zest. Because, I don't know if you know this, but if you use sour, it can sometimes trick the palate so you think you had something salty when you didn't. So that's a very good trick for people that need to minimize salt. We've got some currants, which are similar to raisins, but they're smaller, and they disperse better. You know what these are? These are delicious.
They look good, yeah.
Okay, you don't know what they are. Well, they are pomegranate seeds.
Oh, pomegranates.
Very
Okay,
high
good.
in antioxidants. We've got our fresh herbs. We've got some chopped fresh mint, Italian parsley, and scallions. And for a little extra crunch, some roasted but unsalted pistachio nuts.
Fantastic.
All right, so
Really good.
if you're going to eat this later, add the nuts right before. So let's see what you can do with this.
Okay, we'll see.
Really dig in. You're getting good at this, you know, for us only doing this twice, 5 years apart. You've really retained your skills.
You told a good lesson the first time.
Thank you. Well, get involved with your friends and family. Bring them in the kitchen, cooking together. It's fun, you know. Maybe who knows? Maybe you'll do it again in another couple years. So, back to what you said in the first segment. When did protein become such a revered micronutrient?
Well, exactly. It was 1839.
Wow.
When it was first discovered, and it was given a name meaning of prime importance. And ever since then, people, when they think about protein, they think it's the most revered nutrient of all. They've got to have enough protein. But what we've learned over the years, we need some protein, but when we consume it in excess, problems happen.
Well, breast milk is not very high in protein, right? It's less than 10%.
And breast milk is the most perfect food.
Right.
For that time of life. But, you know, we're the only species on the planet that keep on using that kind of milk.
Right.
We get it from another species on top of it.
We're the only species that drinks milk from another species, and we're the only species that drinks milk after maturity.
But the reason that protein is so important in terms of understanding what it does is because when it causes us problems, we studied this in great detail in terms of mechanisms. It does all kinds of things to actually cause cancer to grow and heart disease to start and all the rest of it. So it's a big deal, understanding that.
But keep mixing, and then we're going to have you taste it. So I don't know if you know any professional athletes, or I'm sure your children and grandchildren are involved in sports, but this is what I hear all the time, Dr. Campbell. I'm afraid to follow a plant-based diet. Where am I going to get my protein? That's what I hear all the time.
Well, I've actually become acquainted with or met, you know, a number of world-class athletes who have discovered that even though they were using high-protein supplements or diets previously, when they switched, they actually improved their performance.
Right. Well, the strongest man in the world, the very strongest man in the world, Patrick Barboubian, he follows exclusively plant-based diet.
I know a couple of others who have world records.
Wow.
They hold world records now because they start eating this way.
Isn't it true that it's impossible to be protein deficient unless you're calorie deficient?
Of course. You can be protein deficient, maybe, but we get all the protein we need from plant food.
Right.
We don't need any extra protein.
Well, green vegetables are higher in protein per calorie than meat. I mean, where do all the large land mammals like the rhinoceros and the elephant, I mean,
of course,
where do they get their protein?
And they're just nothing but just massive amounts of muscle.
I think when we eat the cow, we're getting it in probably the worst fashion we can get it. I say cut out the middleman and just eat the plant, you know?
Yeah, so 2,500 years ago, at the time Plato was writing, when he talked about Socrates and his discussions with his friend, they knew then that basically eating sort of animal-based foods is a problem.
Wow. Would you like to try what you made and maybe make this on your anniversary for your wife, Karen? You can take your gloves off now. The surgical procedure is over.
Okay.
I just think it's easier sometimes to use gloves. You can really get in there and mix it even better.
Somebody will.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever had this, but this is from your book, the China Study All-Star Cookbook. And it's pretty good. It's not bad, huh? Plant food.
Very good.
It's tasty.
Excellent.
Great.
I like that sort of sour.
Yeah, the lime. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes it very tasty.
So, Dr. Campbell, what's your favorite plant-based meal?
Well, we have a favorite that our daughter sort of developed when she was in the Peace Corps, knew about. Rice and beans, but kind of fancy.
That's
with salad on it and beets and stuff like that.
That sounds delicious. And that's funny that Dr. Esselstyn, your co-star in Forks Over Knives, pretty much had the same answer.
Rice and beans is used all over the world by people who actually have forgotten the value of that kind of food.
It's delicious.
It is. It's great.
How have your colleagues responded to the knowledge that you've gleaned over your 50 years of research?
Well, being in a college of agriculture at Cornell, coming from a farm, all that sort of thing, I know their concerns, and they do have concerns, and I understand that. But quite frankly, the one area where I do get a little more concerned is when us academics are called on to give expert opinion and things like that, and we don't actually tell what we actually think we know. So I get concerned about that.
So, Dr. Campbell, how do you feel about the way our school children are being fed these days?
I think it's a national disaster. After all, it's our children who need to know about this mostly. And quite frankly, the kind of food that's being offered to them now is in large measure food that's subsidized by our taxpayer dollars and offered to the children as an economic issue. and they're getting the wrong kind of food.
Right.
We need to turn it around.
They're getting food that's largely creating disease at an early age rather than food that's promoting and creating health.
And our taxpayer dollars are making that happen.
And it all starts right here with delicious, healthy, whole plant food. Make sure you come back because we've got another incredible recipe. This one's dessert. It's got peanut butter, it's got chocolate, and it's delicious. So we're back in the kitchen with Dr. Campbell, and we are going to make another delicious recipe from the China Study All-Star Collection. That's what we're going to do.
Ready to go for me.
We're going to make the peanut butter fudge truffles. So have you ever made peanut butter from scratch?
Not especially. No, I didn't.
Okay. So I'm going to show you how easy it is. This machine is called a Champion Juicer. It's not only a juicer, it can make banana ice cream. So this peanut butter is going to have one ingredient. Peanuts. These are roasted, unsalted peanuts. You know, when you buy commercial peanut butter in a grocery store, it has sugar and oil and salt and stabilizers and additives and preservatives, all that stuff you don't need. How about, here's a novel.
That sounds good to me. That's on the health side of the equation.
Right. This is a novel thought, making peanut butter out of peanuts. And with this Champion Juicer, it takes seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a few of these in the chute to get started. It's a little bit noisy, and I'm going to turn it on. Watch this. I'm not adding anything to it. There we go. Look at that. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? Whoops. There we go.
Very nice.
Look at that. Whoa. A little bit messy, but look at that. It took, you know, less than a minute to make peanut butter out of just peanuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 cup of this peanut butter that we just made and add it to my food processor, which already has a cup of date paste. So all date paste are dates that have been soaked in water and made into a paste, pureed. So there's no refined sugar. There's natural sugar from the fruit. I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, unsweetened, tablespoon of alcohol-free vanilla, and a 1/2 cup of non-dairy milk. I'm using unsweetened almond milk, but you could use any kind of plant milk as long as it's from a plant. I'm going to put it in the food processor fitted with the S blade, and I'm just going to turn it on. That's it. So now we have this lovely, thick, luscious paste that I actually call chocolate fondue. It's like fondue, but it's fun. So what you can do with this is you can take your favorite fruit, like bananas. I know you have grandchildren. What you can do is you can dip the bananas in these, put them in the freezer for frozen bananas.
Fantastic.
Really yummy. You could take your favorite fruit, like a strawberry, and you just dip it in and eat
How
it.
about that?
Isn't that cute? But
New
I'm
for
gonna,
me. That's great.
Wow. Well, you're very adventurous. It's good, huh? But let me show you what I love to do with this. This is a little scoop. You can get it at any store. It's good, huh? No sugar, no dairy. Little scoop. You take a little bit of this luscious filling like this, and I'm going to plop it in my chopped peanuts. Now, by the way, if somebody was allergic to peanuts or didn't eat them, they could use almond butter.
Sure.
They could use cashew butter. They could use tahini. And if they were worried about the high fat content, you could actually make this with beans and make it really, really low fat. Wow. So what I do is I put it in this little dish that has the nuts already in it, and I roll it in the peanuts, and I take this pretty little candy paper, and now we have a healthy, delicious peanut butter fudge truffle. Thank you so much for writing this book. You know, I had been plant-based now for almost 40 years, and until this book came out, I could never explain to people why it was so important, and you've really done such a great job with the science. So now I've always known how to make the food delicious, but you've actually made the science very digestible. So thank you so much for the work you do, and I wish you nothing but future success in all your films and television appearances and best-selling books.
And I want to credit to my co-author son,
right,
who's now a physician doing the same thing.
Which is great, because we always worry who's going to fill your shoes, and at least we know there's another Dr. Campbell that's on the horizon, and we hope to have him on the show very soon. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Campbell. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Campbell's work, watch the movie Forks Over Knives or his new film, Plant Pure Nation, or go to www.nutritionstudies.org. Make sure you come right back, and we'll show you all the recipes we made today. So we made 3 easy and delicious recipes from the China Study All-Star Cookbook today. A thick and hearty yellow split pea soup with sweet potatoes, a delicious quinoa salad with pomegranate seeds, pistachios, and currants, and probably our favorite recipe, the peanut butter fudge truffles. We even made the peanut butter ourselves. It was pretty easy, wasn't it?
Oh, fantastic. Very good.
Dr. Campbell, thank you so much for being here. It's been a real honor having you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for watching another episode of Healthy Living. I'm Chef AJ, and I make healthy taste delicious. Love and kale. I cannot wait to eat this. I'm sorry I didn't get you a spoon.
No, go ahead. You haven't had anything to eat all day.
It's really good. I'll send some home.